Well, I hope what we learn from this, and I think we may, because it may go to a real showdown, is that the debt ceiling makes no sense anyway. If you're going to spend more than you take in, you're always going to have to be raising it. So I mean, what makes sense is looking at the appropriations and looking at revenue sources and that sort of thing. But so a debt ceiling really doesn't make any sense. But since it's part of the institution now, it makes absolutely no sense to let it be used as a lever for other things. I mean, if you want to change the laws on abortion or immigration or you name it, tax laws, whatever, let that be a piece of legislation that people hammer out. But to tie it to something about whether you break the promises of the United States government to people all over the world as well as its own citizens just makes no sense. So it ought to be banned as a weapon. I mean, it should be like nuclear bombs. I mean, basically too horrible to use.
A new weapon of mass destruction.
Yeah, exactly. And both parties should say we've both sinned in the past. Forget about who, all the past behavior has been idiotic. We won't debate who's been more idiotic, but it's over. And the only way to have it over probably is to have a showdown like this. But out of this, I hope, comes the resolution and the realization by the American people that nuclear weapons are off the table. We used 2 atom bombs. We saw what they did. We won a war with it. But we've decided that it's just not appropriate, no matter what the problems are we see around the world, to use them again. And that's the way I feel about tying things to raising a debt limit to get something that can be solved by, if you've got views on abortion, let both sides argue it out. If you've got views on food stamps, argue them out and vote. But don't tie it to breaking the promise of the United States government.
Charlie, do you care to?
I think Warren has understated how awful it is. It's deeply immoral to do this.
Yeah, that's a good word. I mean, it's immoral.
It's deeply immoral, and the debt ceiling, the promises of the United States to pay in dollars of our own printing is absolute. I mean, the default on that is just crazy, and it ought to be unthinkable on both sides of the political aisle. Now, if they want to fight about medicine, they can fight, but I don't think it's right to fight about having the United States pay its obligations in fiat money. We issue the reserve currency of the world. It is deeply irresponsible.
We got tens
and we
of
get huge advantages from issuing the reserve currency. It's deeply immoral, and I think if my Republican friends keep doing this, they're going to pay a terrible price.
It sounds like this makes you less in love with the party that you've been affiliated with for your entire lifetime,
Well,
which is the
certainly less in
Republican.
love with them when they do crazy things like this.
But both parties have done it. The statute of limitations are run on past sins as far as I'm concerned. I'm only interested in what we do going forward. And to have tens of millions of Americans, as well as people all over the world, where the United States government said, our full faith and credit is behind this, to have an asterisk to say, unless there's a few people in Congress who've got some other pet project that are going to use this as a lever to, I mean, it's outlandish.
On the other hand, we shouldn't end on too pessimistic a note. Both parties may behave magnificently when we were really in the soup and the financial panic. Both parties really supported going at the problem with a whip, and they did the right things, and they did it fast.
Yep.
And so I think
and I felt they would, incidentally, in September. I mean, I really felt if people understand the problem, and it's big enough in this country, we will do the right thing.
That's right. 5 years ago, the parties came together, America came together, and
it worked, and it was to the credit of the country that it was done on a nonpartisan basis.
So is there a lesson to be taken from that?
Yes, we ought to go back and behave more like that and less like what you now see.
And how do you think this is going to, how do you think this is going to resolve?
I think there may be some good come out. I mean, this may be like after we dropped a couple of atomic bombs that we saw that we didn't want to do it again. I mean, we couldn't get rid of the nuclear knowledge and all of that, but we just said this is something we don't use it, and this may get close enough to being a real problem that it gets resolved by saying it's off the table.
there's a long history of political excess in either direction, eventually reserving itself. I mean, the Swedes and the New Zealanders came way back from too socialized an outcome, and it was the Labour Party that, for instance, did it in New Zealand. I don't think it's hopeless.